G'day and welcome to the final webinar in our digital literacy series. Great to have you all with us this evening. We're hosting this webinar as part of our ongoing support for organisations in the sport, recreation and not-for-profit sectors in Australia. Our previous webinars in this series have addressed things like an overview of different technology available to clubs to make the lives of their volunteers easier, making better use of social media, technology tools to help clubs manage their money, and asset management software in particular, including a demonstration of the asset management system that we've developed especially for clubs and associations called Asset Track. If you missed these webinars, recordings of all of them, as well as our previous webinar series on club crisis management, are available at cprgroup.com.au/webinars, available for download. We're really pleased to welcome you all to this evening's webinar presenting online tools for great meetings. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, my name is Steve. I'm CPR Group's Director of Sport and Community Development. Since 1997, we've been working regularly with councils and state and national sport and community organisations on planning projects, things like master plans, sport, recreation and community strategies, and park and open space plans. In addition, over the last 20 odd years, we've provided training and support for the committees of clubs and not-for-profit organisations in understanding the principles of good governance and running great, effective meetings. This one-on-one time with clubs and associations is one of the most rewarding parts of our job. And it's amazing when volunteers have those, I didn't know that it could be that easy type moments. And that's why we love helping organisations from all over the country. Joining me tonight is the wonderful Courtney Fredrickson, who will be providing our demonstration of Meeting Track and will also be acting as moderator for the session. I'll hand over briefly to Courtney now to explain how each of you can ask questions during the session.
Hello and welcome everyone. We encourage you to ask as many questions as you have during the webinar. You'll see a QA tab on the left-hand side of your screen. You can post your questions in there and be assured no one else will see the answers you post. We'll try to get to the answers at the end of the webinar. If we do run out of time, we'll get back to you tomorrow with your answers. Back over to you, Steve.
Thanks very much, Courtney. So, why meet? Regardless of whether we're meeting in person or using technology, why do we have meetings? Well, if we didn't, we'd have dictatorships, and don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of dictatorships on just one condition, that I get to be the dictator. When we ask this question though, why meet, during seminars or training workshops, we get lots of different answers, like to have discussions, or to come up with ideas, or to communicate, or even just because we like each other's company and like to hang out. In reality, we have meetings for one reason, and that reason is to make decisions. Formal meetings are the setting where we take the outcomes of our regular communication, our chats around the clubhouse, our yarn over a beer in the bar, our ideas, and we come up with decisions about whether we're going to implement those ideas, and if so, we determine the how, the when, and the who. We at CPR Group reckon that decisions for clubs are probably more important than a lot of people think. We've been in meetings where making a decision has been delayed, and the reason for such a delay could be anywhere on a spectrum, from genuinely trying to buy time to get more information, through to being a manipulative act by the chairperson of the meeting to allow factions to gain support for or against a particular idea. Starting at the seemingly innocuous left end of that spectrum or continuum on your screen, if you get to a meeting and you need more info, you're probably not ready for the meeting. And on the other end, if your organisation is letting a dictatorial chairperson manipulate democracy in your club, you might need our detailed help with your meeting procedures to avoid this being able to happen in the first place. You might need to raise your meeting game to another level. One recent example we've seen was a meeting of a regional sporting association where a decision was put to the board, and instead of asking the board to make a decision, the chairperson said that they needed to slow things down so that they could consult with all of their clubs first. Now, this was a decision that was ready to be made. All the consultation had been completed, and it was really an open and shut issue and not contentious at all. So we were left wondering, in this case, if the chairperson may have been afraid of perhaps making the wrong decision in the eyes of some members, or afraid of change, or perhaps afraid of having to actually do something to help grow the association, because typically decisions lead to actions. But both ends of the continuum really miss the point. Any delay in making a decision is actually a decision in itself. It's a decision to not make a decision. Is this the way that successful organizations are going to progress? We at CPR Group certainly don't think so. We reckon that this sort of delaying just holds back progress. Make the decision as soon as you have the info you need, and formal meetings are where that happens. We live in the age of technology. We live in the future, and there are great technological tools available to help run great meetings. But online meeting tools and meeting management software are altogether quite different from an organization trying to have a meeting by email. When we were asked recently whether a club can have meetings using email, we discussed with the person who asked that question how the answer here is kind of a yes, and it's also kind of a no. While you can, as an incorporated association in any state or territory in the country, or even a public company limited by guarantee, make decisions in writing if your constitution permits, this is not really the same as having a meeting. It's typically even called something like making decisions without a meeting in your constitution. And my advice here is that decisions should be made at meetings wherever possible, including meetings using technology. And this is because of the value of structured debate over the issues on which you are deciding as a committee. I'm sure each of you personally may have been along to a meeting, and on your way into that meeting, you thought that you had an idea you were going to suggest to the other participants that was perfect in every way, only to have debate at the meeting lead to bells and whistles being added to your idea that made your original idea better. And this is the part that is missed if you do all the decision making in writing. Email and things like Facebook Messenger groups or WhatsApp groups are really terrible forms of communication because they're asynchronous. Information only travels one way at a time. It's kind of like a push-to-talk button on a walkie-talkie. While I'm holding it, nobody else can speak. And if you've been in those groups or read the long emails or messages, you know that some people really can go on and on and on. But more important than the fact that it's often a platform for people to have a bit of a rant, messages are really easy, written messages, allowance for tone of voice or interpretation of true meaning, and it's easy to assume passive aggression, even if that's not implied. So when you're using technology for meetings, have meetings, not long-winded written chat fests. So in explaining how to make the best use of technology for your online meetings, firstly, we'll have a look at some of the online meeting platforms that have become much more widespread as in-person meetings have been put on hold. Then we'll have a look at some tips for using these tools. And finally, Courtney is going to give us a quick demo of Meeting Track, our meeting management software that we have developed especially for clubs and associations that struggle to prepare good agendas and to keep good minutes. There are a plethora of platforms available for online meetings. This is by no means an exhaustive list, and we won't recommend that you use any one of these systems. We just recommend that you use what people are comfortable with. And I'm sure that all of you on tonight's session will recognize some, if not all, of those logos on the screen. And there are different considerations to take into account when working out which is best for you. For example, what type of video on the screen do you like? Do you want to see only the person who's talking, or do you want to see everyone in a grid view? Some of these tools allow for that setting to be changed, but try each of them out and see what you like. Most of them will have a free trial period that you can give it a crack and see if it's the sort of platform that's going to work for you and your organization. But our experience with literally all of those platforms on the screen has been that each of them are more than good enough to get by. When it comes to costs, Facebook Messenger and Skype are typically free. Skype for Business will cost, although my experience with Skype is that Microsoft seems to be investing more of their time and effort and indeed money in Microsoft Teams. The others have free offerings with some limitations. For example, Zoom, you can use Zoom for a group chat for a maximum of 40 minutes through the free subscription. Even when we see a complete lifting of social restrictions and social isolation rules, the cost of subscription to any of these services is going to be cheaper than the combined cost of fuel that you'll all spend otherwise getting to a clubhouse or some other venue that you might have to pay extra for to hire for regular meetings. In fact, I was just speaking in the last few weeks with the president of a national sporting organisation who let me know that they had recently held their first online meeting. Now, this is a national sporting organisation that spends literally tens of thousands of dollars every year getting around 15 members of their national executive to the same venue. There's travel, there's accommodation, everyone's away from home, families and friends. Well, they probably don't mind each other's company, which is why they're on that national executive. But they spend days to travel to and from this meeting, which might only take up a day or less of actual meeting time. But they also spend a hell of a lot of money. So this president let me know, Steve, we had our first meeting and they used GoToMeeting and found it perfect for their requirements. And he said, I don't think we're ever going to get together face to face again. He said, all of that money that we spend every year getting each other to the same venue to meet, we can now invest in program delivery, which is a fantastic outcome. And not to mention the fact that when the meeting's done, everyone's already home. So we reckon that one of the silver linings of these social restrictions that we've seen over the past couple of months is that there's going to be a lasting uptake of these online meeting platforms. So we'll run through briefly some rules, and they're not really rules, but more guidelines that will help you in online meetings. Rule number 1, no Brady Bunch jokes. Seriously, enough is enough. Seriously though, don't get distracted by using the cool background tools. I know we've probably been guilty. This is a number of our team members on your screen here from during the social isolation period where we couldn't all get together face to face. And we were for a period having daily catch-ups, and some of the members of our team felt more connected than they ever have before. So a really interesting outcome for us personally. I wish I knew the number of hours, though, that have been wasted around the world in playing with those fun little backgrounds and making it look like you're in front of the Eiffel Tower or underwater in the ocean, instead of getting into the meeting, getting down to business and wrapping up and getting back to work quickly. Nevertheless, it's okay to have a bit of fun. So follow the usual rules of meetings when holding a meeting online. Or indeed, if you're meeting in person, maintain order, don't waffle on, follow the agenda, have an agenda in the first place. make sure you've got a quorum before you declare the meeting open, and move and second motions and so on. If you'd like help with good meeting procedures or a refresher in how to develop your standard meeting rules or standing orders, drop us a line and we'd be more than happy to help you develop these. For an online meeting, use a headset if you have one. If you don't have a headset, use your headphones that came with your mobile phone. If you don't have a headset and your phone headphones don't fit the computer, go and buy some headphones. It makes a massive difference for everyone in the call and can therefore save quite a bit of time. As you saw on that screenshot earlier, we made sure that whenever we connected over the past couple of months, that we had our cameras on. We didn't mind how each other looked without makeup. It makes a really big difference to a sense of connectedness if everyone can see who's in the online meeting. But more importantly, it makes it easier to see who may be trying to have a say. So people can put their hand up. People can you get to get the advantage of some of that human interaction with a nodding head to show that somebody's listening, and little nuances like that to demonstrate good engagement in the meeting itself. If you're not going to be talking for a while, mute your mic. This keeps background noise to a minimum and ensures that whoever is talking can be heard clearly, and avoid some of those, can you say that again? Can you repeat that? Those sorts of moments, and therefore saves us time during the meeting. Have an agenda, as I said earlier, and make sure you stick to it. Be prepared before meetings. Decisions should be listed on the agenda as motions. Now, this is in contrast to having a long agenda of one-word agenda items like barbecue, socks, clubhouse, and so on. Make sure that the wording of the motions on the agenda is very clearly articulated so that when everyone turns up to the meeting, they have a good understanding of the decisions that each attendee is going to want to get made during that meeting. Do your homework so you can get to decisions quickly, because it's the decisions that lead to actions, and that's why we have meetings in the first place. So how do you find the best agenda template, and what about the best minute keeping template? These are questions that have been asked of us over the last 22 years, and that's the point of the demonstration of Meeting Track that Courtney will share with us now. For years, we've been sharing our meeting agenda and minute templates with thousands of clubs and associations, and they're still being modified and used around the world. But there's only so much manipulation and flexibility you can get from a Word document. And with that in mind, we decided to develop a web app instead. And we're really proud to present Meeting Track, which, as I mentioned earlier, is our online meeting management software tool that we've developed to make the job of every committee member much easier. And to make the system even more valuable, it's also just as useful for your business meetings. And indeed, over the past weeks and months, we've been using it to great success for our CPR Group meetings. So I'll now, with great pleasure, hand over to Courtney, who will give us a first-hand demonstration of Meeting Track. Thanks, Courtney.
Thanks, Steve. Hello, everyone again. So here we are at meetingtrack.com.au. You can click this Get Free Trial button here to register for a 7-day free trial and input your details here. Once you've registered, you can log in with your email and password. I'm logging into my account here, and we're going to have a little look around. Once we log in, we can see our scheduled meetings. And as you can see here, I've scheduled a board meeting on the 15th of July. On the left-hand side is our main navigation, and we can go to our scheduled meetings, our meeting history, members, groups. Here we can create groups, for example, a subcommittee, or like we have here, our board. We can go to our documents, archive, subscription, and contact us. Let's go in and schedule a new meeting. So we're going to schedule a general meeting. We'll call it our AGM. The location will be at our clubhouse. Now let's release our agenda well in advance of our meeting to give all our attendees time to prepare. To keep our meeting on track and help our members prepare, we're going to fill in our agenda here. In both types of meetings, the committee/board meetings and the general meetings, we've set up standard agenda items depending on the meeting type, as you can see here. And if we take a look into one of these agenda items, for example, the President's report, and if we go into a motion, you can also see that we've supplied suggested motions based on the agenda item, saving you the hassle of writing these for each meeting. And we can also add an attachment here, for example, our President's report. Select and save, and we've created a motion. Within our agenda, we can also delete any of these items we don't need, like this subcommittee's report. And then we can add additional items. So we're going to add in a new special resolution. And as we know, each decision in the agenda should be listed as a motion. So let's add in our motion here. We're going to adopt our proposed new constitution as the rules of the association. And then we can actually add in that constitution as well. So that when we send the agenda out, there will be a link and our members can access these documents. We can also adjust this template to our needs. So if we go into the settings menu, which is on the top right-hand side, we can access our templates for both meeting types. And as you can see on the left-hand side there, we have more standard agenda items you can use, or you can add in your own custom items and delete these items as necessary. It's really useful to include your standing agenda items, things that you discuss at every meeting, as well as more significant matters that arise from time to time, which you can add in as required. Then when we create a new meeting, it will populate the agenda items from our new template. So after we filled in all of our agenda items and motions, we can send our agenda to our members. We have a couple of options here, including emailing individual members or just to a group that you set up. Another option is to download a PDF and use your mail client to send the agenda to your members. So we can have a little preview of our agenda here, and then we can download the PDF. The agenda and minutes will be saved within the cloud system, so your data is in one central location and can't be lost. But you can also download a PDF for your own personal backup. Here you can see that we've added in the motions and our links to our attachments, so we can download one now and have a look at our very detailed constitution just so. So when we're ready to start our meeting, we can navigate back to the scheduled meetings and press start. And then if we press this start button up here, it will start our meeting timer as well. Then we can add in our attendees, which is from those members we've added, or we can move them over to apologies if needed. And we can also confirm that we've got a quorum. Our minutes will already be populated with the motions we've added to the agenda. Since it already includes the important information, most of the work is already done. The Secretary can now directly input the additional notes and update the motions as we go. So we can update this motion with who it's been moved by, seconded by, and the result, so this motion is being carried, and save. And we can also add tasks, ensuring accountability. So within the task, we can put in the title and notes, but also who the task is assigned to and a due date. And then we can update that status later. We can add additional notes within these fields, and it all saves automatically. Then, once we've input the meeting closing time, we finished our meeting and our minutes simultaneously. And if we look at our timer, in record time, 1 minute and 52 seconds. Now, straight away, we can review and send the minutes to our members. And I'll also show you another option here. We can send our minutes just to the members attending as well. So once we've finished with our meeting, we can go to our meeting history. So we'll go in there now and you'll see that our meeting is closed, but it has tasks pending. We can also verify our meeting from here. So the chair can go in and they can put in their name and confirm that these are an accurate record of the meeting's procedures. So we can submit that. So when we go back into the meeting, we can edit the minutes if we require. And within this, we can also update that task status. So we just go back into the task and then we can mark it as complete. Great, and that is a quick introduction to how Meeting Track can save you time and keep your meetings on track.
1 minute and 52 seconds. Look at that.
It's a record, isn't it?
I think the quickest AGM that I've ever been involved with was around 5.5 minutes. So you've beaten that one.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but this is a great demonstration. Thank you, Courtney, of just how easy to use Meeting Track is. And a few of the really important points that Courtney made in there include the fact that your data is stored in one central location. And typically when we're working with new members on a management committee, we have raised with us the concerns about data handover and the fact that there's a long-winded process typically which needs to be entered into in going and trolling through various maybe cloud accounts, but probably more likely individual management committee members' computers who've got minutes and financial records and constitutions and certificates of incorporation and so on saved on their personal devices. If you're lucky, you'll be able to find all that stuff. The more likely outcome is that you won't be able to gather it all and you'll need to go back to the source to find it if you can get it at all. So the beauty of Meeting Track storing all of your meeting minutes online is that they are available indefinitely into the future for successive management committees, whereby the secretary simply hands over the login ID and password to the next secretary. Ideally, the secretary replacing the incumbent will maybe change the password, and they've got access to all of the historical meeting minutes. So certainly a great tool to make the lives of the secretary, but also the entire management committee far easier. Thank you very much, Courtney. Before we wrap up, I'll just check in quickly with you to see, we've got still a few minutes before 7 p.m. So we've probably got time for a couple of questions if you want to throw any to me that have come in through the Q&A panel.
Sure, yeah, we've actually had a few questions come in. We'll quickly go through a couple here. So one question is, how long before a meeting should we circulate the agenda?
Okay, it's a good question, and we really like when we get asked this question because it shows that a management committee, or at least a secretary, is thinking along the right lines, that the agenda has to, or ideally should, go out to attendees prior to the meeting. And there's really no one right answer as to how long before a meeting the agenda should go out, but based on the organisation, the type of decisions that the meeting is typically going to be making, we say the agenda should go out with enough time for members to be well prepared when they arrive. So typically at least a couple of days is good, even if other pressing matters might need to get added to the agenda after it's been circulated. But it's a great question, like I say, to have asked, because we can see when we get asked that question, like I say, that we are on the path of sending an agenda out rather than having everybody turn up with no idea of what it is that we're going to be talking about. So good question.
Great. So another one here. How long afterwards should the minutes go out?
Well, as you just saw, if you're using Meeting Track, they can go out immediately. But don't fall into the trap of waiting until the day of the next meeting to circulate the minutes, because I don't know about all of you, but I know myself, I find it hard sometimes to remember a discussion that I had yesterday, let alone last month. So it's really difficult to run an organization effectively in that way, because people are going to easily forget what they've committed to doing between meetings. So to unnecessarily drag that process out and delay the minutes being distributed to attendees can often mean that jobs drop off the bottom. Also in Meeting Track, as you just saw, remember that as soon as a task is assigned to someone, and we've been using this function to great effect, and Kirsty, who in our office typically takes the minutes during our team meetings, will attest to the fact that a task being assigned to someone in Meeting Track helps make sure that it actually gets done. So again, no one right answer, but ideally, as soon as possible after a meeting, the minutes should get sent out. Thanks, Courtney. Probably got time for one more question.
All right, one more. How much does Meeting Track cost?
Meeting Track right now is $110 a year. So that is, we reckon, pretty affordable. And with the feedback that we're receiving from clubs and associations across the country that are using it, they're finding that the value for money of investing a few bucks per meeting is delivering overwhelmingly positive results. It's making their lives easier, and we understand the price sensitivity in the not-for-profit sector, and therefore we've priced Meeting Track accordingly. So anyone who is interested, as Courtney demonstrated through that short little presentation, jump online, meetingtrack.com.au, and sign up for a free 7-day trial. Remembering that Meeting Track, as you'll see on the bottom of your screen there, is TRAC, and sign up for a free 7-day trial. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to touch base with us, and you'll find our contact details on our website. And you'll also receive a follow-up email after tonight's session has ended, and you can make contact with us that way also. Thank you all very much for joining us this evening. It's been a real pleasure over the past few weeks, and tonight also, to talk all things digital literacy. We're nerds at CPR Group. At CPR Group, the term nerd is a term of endearment, and we look forward to sharing more great tips and tricks with you through our next webinar series. Thank you again, and thanks, Courtney. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.